Asking someone to wear a mask is so 2020. The new conversation, the new awkward conversation is finding out someone's vaccination status. Experts say the way you ask matters, including your tone, sincerity, and even the choice of words. Joining us to talk about this is someone who's an etiquette expert. She's founder of the Swann School of Protocol, Elaine Swann. You're the perfect person to talk about this. You don't want to just blurt it out because it could just be awkward and uncomfortable. And I suppose there's some of this that we have to maybe put ourselves in a bit of a vulnerable position to begin with, right, Elaine?
We do, yes. This is so challenging because normally in real life, we do not ask people personal questions about their health.
No.
But in this instance, it is something that we must do. And I think the reason why the etiquette for this has shifted is because this particular question can impact not only our lives, but even our family members' lives and others who are still at risk. So it's a very important conversation to have.
Well, and considering that so many of us are going back to the workplace, it affects your job. It affects, the people that you're around. Okay, so I'd imagine how you ask it, in the how, your tone of your voice really matters, right? We know that. Tone matters.
Tone absolutely matters in this instance. And the reason why is because we don't want to sound as if we are accusing someone of maybe not getting the vaccine or getting the vaccine. So our tone of voice really will set the actual tone for that conversation.
Yeah, you know what? I got to check my tone because I think I flat out asked somebody, are you vaccinated? And I didn't mean it tonally, but I was just I was panicking, right? We're all just getting used to being back out in the world a little bit. And we should also keep in mind why we're asking. Be real clear on what it is, the purpose of asking this person.
So the why is so that we know how we're going to interact with these individuals. So let's say, for example, someone is not, they say, no, I'm not doing this. Then that lets you know, okay, well, I'm only going to hang out with you in stuff where it's open spaces and, fresh air. So I will be getting together with you in a little group. And so that's the why. And then the other thing is we want to make sure that we're not taking anything home to any of those who are still at very high risk and those that we love. So that's our why.
Well, and you addressed it at the outset. The privacy stuff still is valid, right? We are allowed privacy.
Oh, sure. We are allowed privacy. So for those individuals who do not want to talk about this at all, when someone asks you about the vaccination, and if you don't want to have that discussion, just simply say, you know what, that's not something I want to share. But listen, how are you doing? So just do that pivot and change the question.
But that's problematic in its own right, too, because if you're spending time with other people, right, potentially they're at risk by being with you.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes. But the thing about it is we shouldn't have to feel forced to have a discussion that we're not comfortable having just yet, because then you end up getting in a big ruckus and it turns into something completely different. So if you're just not ready to have that discussion, be honest with the individuals, be honest with your friends and family and say, I'm just not ready to talk about this just yet.
But also,
I think that's the important thing for us to do.
But also be willing to just give people physical space then. If you're a question mark, you have to understand that people are going to want to give you a little bit more space until they know.
Exactly. And that's the thing that we have to embrace, is to say, okay, I know that people are going to probably shift a little bit, and I accept that. So the thing about it is we have to own up to whatever our position is, whether we choose to be vaccinated or we choose not to be. We have to own up to it and understand that life might be different for us based upon whatever our choices are.
Okay, why don't you run through some phrasing, because I think that will actually arm us with the right tools here.
Yeah, so a couple of phrasing this is great because I did this with our friends this weekend that we hadn't seen in quite some time.
Right.
So one of the things you can say is, what are your thoughts on the vaccination?
I like that.
Yes, it gives the person the opportunity to really dive deep and explain, and you're not putting them in a corner or assuming anything. So ask them their thoughts. Then the other thing is you can kind of give a little information to get a little information. So you can say, I've been vaccinated. Do you plan on getting vaccinated? Or I haven't gotten vaccinated yet. How do you feel about that?
Right.
So give a little bit of information about yourself, because then that way kind of levels the playing field a little bit and lets the people feel feel like you support them. And then here's where you're not quite sure of how the person is how they'll respond. You'll say, would you be willing to share whether or not you plan on getting vaccinated, or if you have been? We're going to be doing this, and so we just want to know what we're dealing with. So this way, the power is in the individual's hand on whether or not they want to share. And then you have the power to make any choice you want to.
Absolutely. You're armed with the information. I was thinking as you were saying that, I was like, I think I would feel slightly managed in that situation. But you know what? So be it. So be it. We have to have these conversations.
We have to, because listen, we all want to get outside. We all want to do our thing. We all still want to get out and lunch and da-da-da. We want to do these things, but at the same time, we want to be safe. And so safe for one person might be, the definition of that might be different for someone else.
And so, last but not least, I want to ask you about the protocol about if I'm going to have lunch with Saul next week and I want to know if he's vaccinated or not, it's best to get ahead of this instead of showing up and asking, right? There's maybe is that a text message? Is that an email? Is that a phone call? What do you think the best protocol is here?
Sure, because of the fact that tone is so important in this instance and it's such a private question, I really believe we need to ask people, number one, in advance, and then number two, it should be a verbal question, whether it's a phone call or face-to-face or something like that. Well, it won't be face-to-face because you don't know yet, but it should be a phone call. Make it verbal. So this way you can kind of ease your way into the conversation, and they can hear the inflection of caring and concern in your voice. Concern
and care. I mean, that's the thing, right? We should be concerned for one another and ourselves, right? And the people around us.
Absolutely.
Elaine Swann, I am grateful for you. This was a conversation that everybody was probably already having over the weekend and are going to be having it about 1,000 times in the next coming days and weeks. We're so grateful. Thank you so much.
It was my absolute pleasure.
And we want to point you to her website, the Swann. It's just swanschoolofprotocol.com. Nice and easy. You might have some sticky situations you need a little advice with. You can count on Elaine for that. Still to come, the Jets and the